You ready? Beautiful. So sorry, let me organize my. Okay, this is a meeting of welcome to the Portland Utility Board on January 6th, 2026. This is a meeting of community volunteers tasked to advise council on items related to the Water Bureau and the Bureau of Environmental Services. Next slide. Under the Portland City Code and state law, the Portland Utility Board is holding this meeting electronically. Board members and relevant city staff are attending remotely, electronically, or by phone, and the city has made it available for the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The public will have an opportunity to provide comments during the public comment portion of the agenda and can also provide written testimony to the board by emailing utilityboard@portlandoregon.gov. Pub believes and acts upon anti-racist principles. In our meeting spaces and interactions with Pub, while every person has the right to share their personal perspective, we stand against wrongful conduct, particularly any conduct that is targeted toward people that are made vulnerable by systemic inequities. This means stepping up as a community when there is wrongful conduct and fostering a space of learning and growth. Putting our principles into action, be active and deliberate, speak up and speak out. Each person is empowered to maintain the culture of the Portland Utility Board, focus on the impacted individual or population, and condemn the conduct, not the person.
Hi, my name is Amy Archer-Masters, and I'll quickly run through the meeting guidelines. Please state your name before you speak, and if appropriate, who you're addressing or that you're addressing the group. The chat box is only viewable by the Pub staff, myself, and Jonna Lynn. Please limit chats to technical and logistical issues, including signing up for public comment, asking for technical assistance, or reminding us if you've been waiting to speak and have not been called on. The raise hand function is used by the board and others during discussion. We may lower your hand once you begin speaking just to maintain the flow of conversation. During public comment periods, the public can raise their hand and you'll be called on when appropriate. If connecting by phone, you may need to press *9 to raise your hand. Videos can be turned on when speaking if desired. It is not required. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If connecting by phone, you may need to use *6 to mute and unmute. Public comment is taken early in the meeting during the public comment period. You can sign up through chat with myself or Jonna Lynn or raise your hand and unmute during that section to speak. It's also available just prior to any formal board vote after a motion has been made and seconded by board members. The meeting is being recorded.
All right, so working through the agenda. Thank you, Amy. Kyle Chipman, a voting member. Working through the agenda today, following the call to order and disclosure of communications, we're going to have public comment and review of minutes, followed by the utility budget planning follow-up, which is really driven by the questions submitted to Jonna Lynn last Friday, and just kind of open Q&A on the two bureaus' budget presentations at our last session. Following that, whenever it times out, we're going to work through our pub engagement strategy, including team report backs. Amy will have a nice summary on other opportunities for potential work sessions, and then working through some next steps, followed by announcements and the next pub meeting. Bing, 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 highlight next week. How exciting. Oh boy, we all get to reflect and come back with some real energy on the 15th. Adjourned. Next slide, please. All right, cool. Next up is our disclosure of communication. This is a moment set aside for any voting board members to disclose any communications with city leadership or bureau staff regarding items that could relate to Pub's work. Are there any items that Pub members wish to disclose? Beautiful. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. Did anyone submit for public comment? Jonna Lynn or Amy?
This is Jonna Lynn. I have not seen anything.
Haven't had anything either.
We'll give it just a moment for anyone who might have joined the call who wishes to speak or address the board. Beautiful. Once again, hearing none, we'll move on to a review of minutes. So the minutes from December 18th were distributed. Are there any suggested changes or corrections? Beautiful. The silence of consensus. Seeing none, the minutes are accepted. All right. At this point, I'd like to invite Pub staff to provide updates for the board.
Great, thank you. This is Amy. I'll very quickly just run through, it will lead into our next conversations about budget, because there have been some updates to the budget calendar, as might have been noted in the email. Just that budget, current service level budgets, as Cecilia described at the last meeting, are due January 23rd. But they have extended until February 9th, the budget reduction concepts due date. So that stretches that timeline out a little bit to allow staff a little bit more time to develop those more fully and submit those. So the next steps, I think there's aspects of the budget calendar that are still in flux, but there are some things that we know, including work sessions that will be planned then in late February, early March. The utility rate review, as far as I know, at least the last version I saw was on April 15th. So those are some of the key new dates that have come up since then. And we can talk more about specifics later on. Cecilia did a good job of, I think, highlighting what some of the next steps are that are budget related as far as the bureaus are concerned. So we'll continue to work with you as there are opportunities for Pub to engage. We do anticipate having some similar opportunities given the schedule as have been in the past for engaging in as providing testimony to work sessions and through the committee work. So we will continue to work on those. The other piece that I think I don't remember whether we had the opportunity to mention it during the last meeting or if it was just via email, but council did proceed through some adoption of some priority setting goals that they have. So they are working as a council to adopt annual goals in January of each year. And so this will be the first year that they do that. And so that might be helpful information as it becomes known. We will let you know of specific dates and information that is being shared regarding that. And then obviously whatever the outcome is, I believe their goal or deadline is by the end of February that the full council has adopted them. So unless something changes, that is what I know as of the moment. Jonalyn, is there anything else that I've missed?
I can't think of anything else that we needed to update.
Great. So just let me know as you have questions.
Cool. Any questions for the board on those points raised by Amy? Beautiful. I take it now. We're going to move on to direct questions to Bureau leadership. So just as a kind of quick scene setting, at our last meeting, we heard through presentations from utility staff about budget priorities, asset management, budget guidance process, and challenges and uncertainties. As there wasn't time to address any questions directly at the end of the presentations, we wanted to follow up on this meeting with discussion around budget planning. So I guess in terms of facilitating, Jonalyn, you received the questions basically last Friday, and those were already sent to the representatives today.
Yes, the questions that were submitted last week were sent to folks on Friday last week. So if those of you who have those questions would like to ask them live, they indicated that they're ready to answer pretty much all of those questions that were submitted to them.
And I can pull up just on the screen the specific questions that were raised, and or anytime that it is helpful, I can pull up the slides that were used as those provided some really helpful information from the last meeting. And for those of you who are in the room who did not submit questions, that is okay. Please raise your hand and interject and add anything that's clarifying. If you've had opportunity to watch the last presentation and had lingering questions that we didn't have the time to cover, please feel free to raise those at any point as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jonalyn. Thank you, Amy. And I think I got mine pulled up as well. I'll just go ahead and kick us off with I basically just divided my questions and grouped them up into the flow of the presentation itself. So yeah, just feel free if you got them, raise your hand. We'll kind of popcorn around the room, give people some breathing room, some opportunity to ask, and catch a nice flow of communication. Kyle Chipman, voting member, sorry. I'll start us off with a kind of twofold overarching question, which I don't think is going to have a lot of clarity right now, but if either representatives from either bureau can address, I was really curious about integrate the separation of budget versus opportunities for submitting an integrated budget if there was crossover. That both speaks to the point Cecilia raised toward the end of her presentation and challenges, which was the unknowns of the centralized nature of services, but also like I know that the rate projection is combined. If you could speak to what is distinctly separate in terms of which bureau controls which budget, and if there's any crossover or carryover between both bureaus submitting singularly.
Um, I'm happy to start with that question. And then Farshad, I know you're in the room, so if you'd like to add on after that. So the water funds and sewer funds are restricted funds, which basically means that we need to have separate budgets to ensure that the budget only pays for water. The water budget will only be will need to include all the things that is related to providing water services. So our budget will still be separate for that purpose. Potentially, I mean, we could be looking at a model in the future, and we're not there yet, of with the DCA office, we contribute to that office because that office supports our organizations, if that makes sense. So for the time being, you can expect our budgets to be separate because they need to be remained in our separate funds.
And I'll just add to that, thanks, Cecilia, that even though our budgets are distinct, we have over the last several years and more formally in the last couple of years since the establishment of the Public Works Service Area, the Water Bureau and BES have been coordinating and collaborating much more on budget development in terms of assumptions, validating assumptions, and having consistency of assumptions and planning procedures, so that while we have distinct expenditure packages, i.e. the budgets, our approaches are increasingly coming into alignment. So there's more consistency when we are presenting to council and when we're planning with ourselves. So I think there are some integrations happening in a less formal way that are changing how we budget and the impacts of our budget. But the actual technical development of the budget, as Cecilia indicated, are going to be distinct for the foreseeable future.
Beautiful. Thank you both so much. That was even reviewing some of the initial onboarding materials from like a year and a half ago. That was my understanding. It's just more like locking it in with the known unknowns and all that stuff. So thank you both so much for the response. Brooke and then Lorraine.
Thanks, Kyle. Brooke Burhanu, voting member. I just had a quick kind of follow-on question relating to Kyle's question, and it's more related to the risk assessment procedures frameworks that were presented in the last meeting. I was wondering, this is kind of more of a speculative question, but has there been any thought given, or is there any potential benefit for a kind of a comprehensive risk assessment that looks at combined risk over the two departments or over kind of multiple departments within the public works area? I don't know if there's like possibility for alternate funding sources or to make a case related to funding based on that combined risk profile. I'm just curious if y'all's thoughts on that. Sorry for the impromptu question. I know I didn't send this before, so I can always take an answer later on as well.
I'm happy to just kind of give us current status of the potential for that and why we don't actually have one across multiple bureaus, and maybe the obvious answer is it's a great idea, but we have not had the organizational support structure to be able to do that until we reorganized into our current state. And so with the, and I don't want to speak for the other bureaus, but just BES alone, us being able to do the risk assessment, strategic risk assessment that we presented to you a couple of weeks ago has been a massive effort, really. And so doing that across the public works service area is doable. It's not that conceptually it's totally doable and can be scaled to do that, but that is a pretty big effort. And so that's something that certainly would need to be coordinated, and Director Liu would have to participate in that and help us kind of figure out how to do that across the other bureaus and within BES and water as well.
That's helpful, and yeah, I can only imagine how many person hours it took to just get to this point. So more kind of forward-looking question, but I appreciate that response.
Beautiful. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Shannon. You have the floor, Lorraine.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. My question is with regard to what I think is our role as the Public Utility Board, which is some form of oversight. And I'm fully open to correction. As we move forward in this budgeting process, at this point in time, I don't have a grasp of what is being proposed for rate increase and its impact on the community. And I'm seeing that on April sometime there is a rate review meeting that's happening. And it's so nice to see Fashad. I missed you at the last meeting, Fashad, last year. And I'm glad you and Cecilia are here. And for some reason, I'm open to correction. By this time, we are somewhat aware of what is being proposed. And I remember in previous budget meetings or presentations that we were presented with graphs showing, hey, if we increase the rates by this percent and we continue doing it, we can do it incrementally. Or if we don't do it incrementally, there can be a spike. And if I remember correctly,
Lorraine, this is Amy. It's hard to hear you as clearly as I think we need to be able to respond to questions. And maybe it sounds like maybe it's on speakerphone. Could you try shifting that to see if we could hear you more clearly? Uh-oh, now I think I lost you altogether. I didn't.
She might be adjusting, but thank you, Amy. I was going to raise the same point. Give a few more seconds.
can you all hear me?
That's
That
better,
is
yeah.
clearer.
Sorry about that. I had it on my speaker and I forgot to take it off. I apologize. I'm on island time. Anywho, as we get back to the conversation, as I was saying, I remember in the past, around now, we would have an idea as the pub as to what is the possibility of a rate increase based on a lot of information that would be provided by us, in-depth information that both bureaus would do. I remember some years ago, there was a graph showing us what a spike would look like or what an incremental increase would look like. And I'm seeing that on April 15th, there's a rate review meeting. Amy spoke about it. So giving that background context, I'm curious to know if I'm mistaken or if there is information that's coming for the pub on what is going to be proposed based also on budget recommendations from the mayor and other
other things with regard to funding, monies, and all these different things. So I'm curious about that.
Well, I will maybe take a stab at this. It's good to hear from you, Lorraine. And I want to acknowledge this has probably been acknowledged a couple of times in the last several meetings, but the schedule in which the utilities are having to budget is not typical and not ideal. And information that we've enjoyed presenting to the board in the past in a much earlier time in the budget year has just not been available to share at the same period this time around. So that's just a regret that we, due to the logistics of this year's budget development and all of the various work streams, it's been challenging to meet those past expectations. Specific to the rate increase, we have produced a rate profile that goes out 5 years, and that rate profile has largely, at least in the next couple of years, has largely been unchanged from what was presented last year. So we are currently forecasting the need jointly to increase rates about, there you go, 6.34%. And that's a 8.1% increase for water and 5.15% for BES. That has not changed, and that is still a fundamental part of our budgeting assumptions this year around. As you know, rate increases are not guaranteed, and the budget that we develop is based on these assumptions. And if the rate revenue comes in at a different amount than what we forecast, we will have to make adjustments to our budget to account for that diminished revenue. We're working through those scenarios that the mayor has provided to us in his budget guidance right now. I'll just tell you from BES's perspective, we're allocating many hours during the work week. I think 2 to 3 work sessions a week at 2 to 3 hours each, trying to process the budget information under these various scenarios. So we're actively trying to get this information together in a way that that can be shared with the pub, but we aren't there yet. And we hope to be able to share it as soon as it is available. But it's an active body of work that we're working on. And, you know, our revenue assumptions have stayed, for the time being, have stayed the same at an annual increase of 6.63% or 36%.
Thank you, Farshad. Thank you, Lorraine. Daryl, you have the floor.
Dow Bob, voting member. Thank you, Kyle. My question kind of ties into the rate review and rate impacts. I was just hoping that possibly Pub could see a version of the rate package that is a little more, I guess, distinguished, so that we could maybe see what is kind of influencing rate increases, or if they even occur. If there could be like a breakdown of if maybe rates are increasing due to like timing or policy choices, or if they just come as a result of like unavoidable cost increases. Um, would Pub be able to see a breakdown of that if rate increases are slotted to incur?
Yeah, Daryl, I think we can certainly plan on sharing that information. As Farshad said, we have been working very hard to get our budget put together, and when we present that information to Pub, we can certainly include information as far as the impacts to rates.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have questions building off of both Lorraine and Daryl's points. And they are, I'll just ask twofold question. The first was tied to the three scenarios and the nature of status quo. And this is just more clarification from Cecilia, your half of the presentation. I take it that because rate projections need, here, I wrote it down, as the rate projections would need to be made higher to meet the increased costs, status quo basically means that we're starting off with reductions in service as opposed to what was projected meeting a status quo. Is that correct? There is no status quo. Reduction in service is the status quo. Is that the way to think about it?
So I think we'll be able to present a status quo and what the rate impact would be associated with the status quo.
Okay.
So we'll show that. We'll have that information that we can share with Pub. I think what we're saying here is for that budget scenario, to truly have a status quo budget, essentially, and with, the reality is the true cost of personnel and internal and external services that the city buys have outpaced inflation. So we are looking at higher than what we forecasted, even just a year ago. So that in itself, everything else being the same, right? You would expect higher rates would be necessary to support that. So I think we anticipate that. We're still working to understand how much more we're looking at. And budget scenario 2 basically directs us to bring that amount back down to align with the forecast. So we'll have both set information that we will definitely be sharing with Pub.
Thank you for the clarification. It was more like, because I know it's about positioning and value, and that you are looking at increased cost and higher rates to meet what status quo is expected. And then it's about really the reality of reduction in service to meet the reality of what that absence of higher rates would be. Actually, that does lead me to my next question. To meet scenarios 2 and 3, and this is pulling back to presentations made toward the beginning of last year by both Cecilia and Farshad. And I'm sorry, Kyle Chipman, voting member. I forgot to say at the start. In those two, you were looking when you were presuming that you would have to hit the reduction in rate or the reduction in service. There were a whole bunch of like vacant positions and deferred hires. And I was referencing them when I was looking through this. Is that deferred hires and not hiring, is that still amongst the pieces and informs the palette of options, or those have already been exercised and now you have to dig even deeper in terms of what reductions could be? And I'm not looking for like an exact accounting, but it's just roughly what you presented last year, what options you have.
I think maybe the way to think about it is we're building off of the current year's budget. So whatever reductions we made in the last process, those happened. And we're looking at needing to do more. We have been holding positions due to the city's hiring freeze. Those are, of course, considerations that we're looking at, those vacant positions to reduce, to address, or to do the budget scenarios.
That's right. Okay. I guess for the benefit of other folks on the call, a lot of it was also like entry-level people and training positions and kind of the feeder program to bring people up and grow from within that was lost in either deferred hires or eliminating vacant positions. That was a big chunk of it. So I was hoping that could still, it was in play. But Farshad, I don't know if I cut you off.
Yeah. And I also want to clarify that as we understand it, the budget scenarios is what we've been directed to develop. That doesn't mean that we are going to be losing everything that we put forth as budget concepts or reductions. We don't know if council will be approving our rates as forecasted. Based on what we're putting forth and understanding the trade-offs of what we won't be able to continue to do or what we will need to do less of, council could say, that's too much. That's not acceptable. You need the rate increases to support your current operation. That could be an outcome. So I want to make sure that we understand that what we're putting forth, as have been told, is an exercise that we've been asked to put together to demonstrate the trade-offs of not increasing rates further or potentially having lower rate increases.
And I just want to add, I think, our bureaus do work through people. The work that and the levels of service we provide to our community is done with every hand on staff. And if we are needing to make budget reductions that impact people, it will impact the level of service that we provide to our community. So whether that is eliminating vacancies, that just adds more work to the people that are in filled positions, or reducing filled positions means that level of work is not happening. It's a really existential problem that we're trying to solve here with our financial situation. The only comment I wanted to make, I just wanted to kind of coattail on Cecilia's comment, but on one of the questions that was submitted, I want to maybe clarify some terminology that I think can be a little bit confusing. There's a lot of things that are being used kind of interchangeably, and one of them, status quo was explicitly stated in the mayor's guidance. And then I think one of the questions was around core services. And I just want to maybe offer kind of a preferred language that we're using of the services that we provide in our budget. We're calling them current service levels. So current service level is everything that we're currently providing to our community. And to provide those same levels of service over time through inflation, it becomes more expensive. And that's one of the reasons, back to the earlier question about what's driving rate increases. Inflation is one of the major drivers of rate increases. But I want us to maybe move away from the term of core services, because that implies non-core services are part of our budget. And I think that can be misleading and less helpful. Everything that we budget for has a direct or indirect contribution to our permanent regulatory compliance, to our capital improvement plan and delivering capital projects, to the safe and effective operation of those assets in our operations, and ultimately kind of the long-term financial sustainability of the organization. And we're frankly, there isn't any non-core work left in our budget, if there was ever any. So when we talk about these scenarios and having to reduce our current service levels, we're talking about doing less of mandatory work, incurring risks both to our compliance or to the health and safety of our employees, or to our community. So I just wanted to, I think that the words we choose, I think, are important, and recognizing that there isn't a lot of fat on the bone here, if any, and reductions are going to have real serious consequences somewhere in the organization.
That is very precisely said. Thank you so much, Farshad. Before releasing the floor to Lorraine, I have just one additional question, which is directly related to pubs engagement and the support or contribution or community voice that we could possibly raise in terms of the nature of current service levels and risk incurred through reduction, and that every choice carries a cost. As you present these scenarios, is there a role? Does it make sense? And I'm sorry, as you present these scenarios and we think about the timing of our work session with council, does it make sense that we can amplify or provide additional context or weight to incurred risk or the cost of reduced services through our decision making, or no, that's inappropriate or like out of pocket with council?
Well, I won't suggest what the message is that you would give to council. I think that's for you all to decide, but I will speak to the opportunities to present whatever message that might be. And I think, unfortunately, this year, as we've already discussed, the windows for that engagement have narrowed quite a bit because of how accelerated things are. But there will be, as Amy flashed earlier, a hearing scheduled where I think there will be some opportunities to share the pub's perspectives, which I think are really valuable and have been influential in previous hearings. So I would welcome you all to engage in those opportunities as they exist this year.
And this is Amy. I'll just add to that because I will tell you that it is opportunity and pub members will be interested in taking it. That hopefully the information that you're getting, the value, and I think I mentioned this previously, of knowing what the budget would look like to just maintain current service levels is an important distinction for pub because you don't usually have that information. The bureaus are often working just towards what has been asked, which is the reduction scenarios or whatever rate that the mayor has directed the bureaus to work towards. This time, you will have at least what the current service level is and what the gap is if they're going to just stick with the prior financial forecasts, which haven't adjusted to the changing circumstances. And I think that's important because I think for pub, based on what I know of your discussions, that will be important so that you can really hone your message on what you've identified as your high priorities in not reducing service levels in particular areas and making sure that there's opportunity to adjust the financial forecast based on decisions that are being made that impact prior forecasts and decisions.
Thank you, Farshad. Thank you, Amy. And as we transition around 4:30-ish, I'd love to, we talk about timing and how to maximize our voice and impact and the echoing of voice for community. Lorraine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Lorraine Wilson, voting member. Amy, thanks for that information because my thinking, I don't know if it's a question or whatever, it goes back as we move forward in trying to be strong advocates, right? Especially in these times where people's pockets are already impacted. Let's go back to the mayor's guidance. The mayor came up, and I don't think I saw anybody from CBO on the in the meeting, but we have Celia and Farshad. So here we are. That is based, I don't know if you all have this information, but based on the mayor's guidance for the budget, what information was taken under consideration to come up with his guidance based on all the scenarios? I'm curious to know that because in years gone by, we have, one of the reasons that have impacted rate increase was the city's income didn't match its prediction. And we've based some of our predictions based on, what would finance look like or what would income look like? And here we are now in 2026 with dealing with inflation, extreme inflation, almost we're going into probably hyperinflation. I don't know. I'm not an economist. And what are the things, what was taken under consideration in this time? Is it a drop in income plus in hyperinflation? What are all of the things that were taken into consideration?
I can start and then certainly defer to the other experts in the room who maybe have even more information. So the city's financial forecasts are a huge element that's taken into consideration. That's part of the reason that guidance is often later than ideal, because they're really waiting on current realities that are impacting the local economy. So that is a major factor. We sit in the budget office, so although none of the analysts are available, I have direct interactions with the budget director, who is my supervisor, and so we as staff also had opportunity, as they were working on budget guidance, to share some input about pub's prior feedback and what scenarios might look like. So I don't know that it had any impact, but I know that those conversations, I was asked for information and I responded based on what I've seen from pub's prior recommendations and our recent conversations in the board meetings. Those were informal and on quick response, but I think they are taking into consideration all the factors, all the various information, and a lot of their focus in the development is on the general fund impact. And so there's a lot of focus there in the development of the guidance. But again, it's providing that direction, and then there's a lot of other things that change as the process moves on.
So I certainly was not in the conversation as far as the mayor's guidance development, but I believe the desire to have the guidance around the utilities is to achieve a lower increase to rates to be more affordable. So I think that's probably what's driving it, was what I would assume.
And the reason why I'm asking, because I know many of us on the pub have mentioned the importance of community engagement. And it is important, and I think it's almost imperative, that this information is communicated early, simply, and clearly to community, so that they understand the why behind what is coming down, or what is proposed, or what is going to be enacted. And I'm not sure that is going to be achieved, and it's going to have a lot of blowback for the city. Therein lies my concern. Because we're already into hard economic times for people. I'm sure, I think both utilities are already seeing probably challenges in collecting rates, because communities are hurting. And I just would like full transparency. And here we are again, as Farshad mentioned, we're running into a tight deadline with regard to budget. We're already into a crunch time, even though we've been asking, hey, what's coming on with the budget? What's going on with the budget? We've been asking about that since last year. I think it was raised in September in earnest. And here we are again, and it seems now to be the norm rather than the exception, that expediency is being used in a way that might be detrimental to the community. And I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Lorraine, for both the question and the direct observation for the record. Daryl, you have the floor. And agreed as well, Lorraine. Thank you.
Daryl Bell, voting member, yes, agreed as well. And I guess this will be my last question if we're tight on time. It kind of ties into what Lorraine was speaking about. And in fact, maybe the answer to this can be used as examples or evidence if crafting a message to the public. Uh, like what would residents most notice if uh, rates are not increased or if reductions move forward? And I guess how could we as the board best articulate um, the dangers, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to.
I'll take a stab at this. Daryl, thank you for the question. And I'll just reference the rate restrictions that were initially part of the mayor's guidance last year. I think they're maybe motivated by the same intent that Cecilia called out about keeping things affordable for our community members and customers. The reduction in the rate seemed quite modest. And last year, I think there was a 5% reduction on the rate of growth was what was initially asked for. So it was a couple fractions of a percent that we would be limiting our rate increase to, and would have a couple $1 million of impact collectively to both bureaus, which would have had a significant budget impact in our ability to deliver services to our community. And I think your question is, what would the community, what would a customer experience? I think in that case, it was a little less than 50 cents per month, something like that, if my memory is right. So the notion that the notions of affordability, I think, are really held close to both utilities' hearts. We have a very robust affordability and customer support system and portfolio of programs. And that support is focused on the portion of our community in greatest need of that support. If we have blanket rate reductions, the impact is generally really severe to the bureaus to have the resources needed to cover core service level given inflation increases, or to start addressing capital delivery and regulatory compliance, which, if those fail, they increase costs to the bureau, and they have health and human service, health and safety risks to the community. If we have water mains break, as we did just a couple days ago, and created a sinkhole, or we have sewer discharges to the river, which make it not swimmable. Things like that are really where the impacts are felt to our customer, even from the modest changes to our rate increases. And financially, I would go out on a limb and say most customers won't even feel the benefits of what is being proposed in terms of rate reductions. So it's this interesting economic dynamic that we're trying to balance. And I think part of the challenge for us is to really demonstrate the value of the services that we provide to the community in terms of safe drinking water, reliable sewer service, healthy environment, less flooding. These are the things that I think come with what people pay on a month-to-month basis. And I think that's the message we need to drive home, that it costs to provide those services. And if we're going to continue to provide them regularly, we need to find a way for folks to be able to pay for them. I see Team Director Liu came on camera, so maybe she has some comments as well.
Yeah, I just really want to first say thank you so much for all the questions, and also first out you, Cecilia and Shannon, all the great response. I will just echo that it's been a difficult year. It's not getting any easier moving forward, because we really have this difficult trade-off to make between the long-term investment with the aging infrastructure, deferred maintenance, capital investment, and at the same time, how can we keep the rates stable, predictable, and affordable too? Just like Farshad said, it's 80% of the Portlanders are really being able to paying for this rate is really the 20%. How can we provide more access? How can we making sure there's an outreach and connecting with the communities to support them to getting on this affordability and the financial assistance program. So we are continue looking to ways to both from communication and engagement part is that even with the pub, we talk about the communication campaign. I would say it's both the communication campaign to educate and communicate the value of the services, as well as the communication campaign for the affordability and helping the communities to understand how they can get the support. What are the things we can provide them to support that? BES has done a rate study in the last few years. The Water Bureau is going to look into that in the long term too. So I really share the concern, the frustrations about this timing and how much that we want to engage the communities too. And I know that we are all here to commit it. We want to get more of a continuous communication and the discussion and dialogue and really bring the community's input as part of this future discussion.
Could I add one maybe other element to all of this, because this is really important, and I think we touched on it a little bit in our presentation, but there's a equity component here too that I know we all in the bureaus talk about in terms of the long-term investment and the trade-offs that we're having to make with these big reinvestment needs. And if we are not able to do that in a timely manner, again, related to our asset management practices and when we know we should be reinvesting, that essentially means we push that burden to future generations to fund, to figure out how to close the gap that is inevitably going to be a bigger gap. And so I think that is also part of this conversation that we're having internally about what it means to not get those rate increases and how that then impacts intergenerational equity concerns. And so I think that's part of this conversation as well, and that it is very much a part of the conversation that we see that the equity issues that we're dealing with in the BES and water sector, especially because our assets are 100-year, 120-year assets. We're talking about multiple generations of affordability, not just our affordability in this moment. So I wanted to highlight that is something that is part of this conversation too, internally within the bureaus.
Thank you, Farshad. Thank you, for Cecilia. Thank you, Director Liu. Thank you, Shannon. I have as we kind of close in towards 4:30, I have actually a series of questions for Shannon directly. We'll take whatever additional time we need because we have such strong and thoughtful representation across both bureaus. For any additional questions posed by board members, if you haven't had a chance to speak or make your voice heard, feel free to take a few minutes and just reflect on any additional questions or clarification you might be looking for. And one of the questions I actually was going to ask, which was more directed toward Director Liu, and it was the final bullet point on your possible challenges to accomplish the affordability and equity goal laid out in the slide. It's been echoed across the call today. So thank you all for your making your voices heard and speaking so clearly and eloquently. Specifically for Shannon, I was wondering on the BES Asset Management Plan and the CIP plan, your presentation. First question is, how far along is the Bureau in configuring and deploying Infor public sector for asset management? And then additionally, will that system be leveraged across, or is the vision for the system to be leveraged across the entire public works service area or exclusively for BES?
So that's a big question. And so the Infor public sector effort is really a joint effort between Water Bureau and BES. And we are in the middle of that implementation plan at BES. They are on slightly different schedules between the two bureaus because we do have different collections of assets, but it is a shared information system that we've invested in. And so as it was conceived and acquired at the time, we were all set under, we were not under the Public Works Service area, although there was a pretty big effort to review the other kind of sister bureaus, PBOT and Parks, to see what other asset information systems we had and whether or not more of us could kind of jump on the Infor or another system. We hadn't made the selection yet. It was before we made the selection. And so we really did a lot of collaborative effort to understand the needs of each bureau because they are very different. And so what we came to is that Water Bureau and BES had the most capability in collaborating across a similar system. And so that's why we partnered across the two bureaus and not maybe others. And so that background is really just meant to show that I don't see right now that it is likely that we would have Infor as the Public Works Service area. There are other substantial information systems that PBOT uses, for example, and Parks. So and that's serving them well right now. And so that's what I know, but we're in the middle of implementing those information systems across both BES and Water Bureau right now. And it will take some time for us to get that fully functional. We are doing it in phases. So
thank you.
Yeah.
The next question, when IPS is configured and deployed, and I only really have exposure at like kind of single or 2-page executive summaries. What kind of real-time reporting would be available to either pub or the public? And if you're not comfortable now, it's fine. But like, it's kind of how communication and visibility can be opened up writ large.
Yeah, so I think that's another big question. I don't have a lot of good detailed answer for you because, again, we're still trying to figure out the business processes that we are bringing online that are most urgent for us to bring online right now to serve operations and other stuff. And I'm only at this point, I'm only speaking for BES. I don't really know about the Water Bureau side. I would like to talk with our representatives who are leading kind of who are on the steering committee that have an outlook of what we might be able to bring to the pub in terms of outcomes from that work in terms of real-time information. I don't have an answer for that. So I'm happy to help get that information and share it with pub.
Thank you, Shannon. Additionally, and it kind of leads into the next line of thinking, which is not just the public, not just pub, but also city council, not just that real-time reporting piece. But I was curious if the presentation you gave had been delivered to either council members or any subcommittees, or is the level of awareness on council side primarily derived from just the annual citywide assets report? Just because the presentation was so clean and like belies a sense of urgency and thoughtfulness that it kind of could give maybe more momentum than just, oh, this is another annual cadence where I receive information passively.
Sure. So I'll say what I know, and then I will ask Ting if there's any other better information that she can provide. But to my knowledge, no, that presentation has not been given to council specifically or any council person. We have shared that presentation or a version of it with DCA Donapal earlier, in 2025. I do want to say that there is general awareness from City or Councilwoman Clark about the kind of state of the reinvestment gap across the whole city, not just BES and Water Bureau. And she has taken notice of that through the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. And so there was a resolution for the city to develop a citywide asset management strategy roadmap. And that's currently in development and has a short time frame. I think there's a first presentation back to that committee in February about where we're at with that strategy roadmap. So I think there's awareness, whether or not they have specific understanding of BES. What I presented a couple weeks ago, I'm not sure.
Thank you. And I actually, to reinforce it, when I was just doing my own investigation, yeah, Oregonian had that nice write-up on Councilwoman Clark. And it's like, as we think about how we target specific committees or people, like how to, put some oomph behind it from a public perspective. Thank you. I guess the final one, if I was asked, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just add something. This is Amy. I just wanted to add because of the reference to the February work session or meeting with the committee, that in our early conversations with Councillor Clark's, the staff that staffs that committee, that one of the opportunities that she specifically flagged as a potential opportunity for PUB to give some direct council feedback is at that work session because of PUB's interest in asset management. Now, I don't know what the level of detail will be at that meeting or whether there's like a direct connection to some of the budget priorities and those things, but that's just right around the corner. It'll be in February. And so I just wanted to note that for PUB as you move into the next conversation about opportunities for engagement, that is a potential one that the council member has identified as potentially inviting PUB if there seems to be interest in providing some comment to the committee.
And I will just also add, Amy, thank you so much. Yes, like Shannon said, there hasn't been the full presentation to council members or TNI. We have been referencing the $6.7 billion of the capital gap to the councils during our budget presentation. And actually, that's also part of the reason that the current councils reversed the rate increase for last year, because we're seeing so much deferred maintenance, but what's the impact to the individual household is the minimum for most of the household. So that's where the change has happened. And that's really very important piece of information. So I think the continuous will be strengthen that number and being consistent communicating to the council will be really helpful.
Beautiful. Thank you, Director Liu. Thank you, Shannon. I have one more question, which is kind of funny, and I'm just going to ask it. And this is just genuine curiosity, as I am super interested in not just deferred maintenance, but like unified asset management and capital improvement programs. Is there any way to gain credentials to the 6th edition copy of IPWEA's IIMM? Because I found an older version online, or I just saw it in your bullet points of reference stuff. Not that I would want to. I don't know, just curiosity.
Do you mean you just want reference to the most updated version of
IIMM? Or is the textbook physically at Portland's somewhere at the city?
I mean, I got a version at my desk. I can photocopy for you. I'm just kidding. No, I'm pretty sure we have a digital version that can be shared.
If there would be any way to share credentials to PUB, and then we could just kind of under our own auspice, just dig in and build vocabulary so that really, as we communicate, we can communicate effectively. That's the intent.
Sounds good.
Cool. Thank you. Any other questions coming from board members before we transition to our own planning and engagement with council?
Lorraine here. I'm sorry, I can't find the raise hand on my phone in a timely manner. So now that we have a new city manager, is he present? Has he started? Okay, wonderful. And as we move forward with budgeting and all that stuff, someone was mentioning that there is going to be a conversation about a possible restructuring, or am I misguided? As we move forward with the budget now, how are we taking all of this into consideration with our new city manager and guidance that's probably different to what we got from our last city manager and all of that? I was just thinking about that. I don't know if it's relevant or not, and feel free to say it's not relevant, Lorraine.
I guess I'll start. I think it's probably a good question, and we'll monitor and keep that on our queue for the future. I think we'll see new information and guidance coming out from the new staff. You asked about reorganization. I mean, there's the efficiencies and reorganization work that has already been directed and approved by council that's happening this year. So that work, the utility bureaus and citywide are continuing to move forward. Some of that is, happening within the budget planning staff as they develop budget this year. So that's part of them being all stretched so thin, is that work is continuing to move forward, and not that under new leadership it couldn't change somewhat, but council has approved the actions that are currently moving forward because they've set what that target is for the bureaus to achieve. And so that's what they're working towards. We don't have all the details on what that means because it's still unfolding. So I think we'll learn more as in the coming months. And certainly, I think within the utility bureaus specifically, I think the goal was to have some structural information or proposed information by late this spring, like April timeframe, that would come back to to the pub to provide some feedback and update prior to them continuing to move forward on implementation of some of those broader elements. So it's hard to know how to answer because there's so many different efforts that are going on right now. And obviously they also can change at any time with a new direction coming from council or other leadership. So, but I've noted the question, and I think it's a good one to continue to monitor and try to figure out how to answer as we move forward.
Thanks, Amy.
Seeing no further questions, I think we will transition to our internal coordination. So I just want to give a sincere and heartfelt thank you to all representatives of the bureaus for your time, expertise, and dedication to our city through your technical skill. Thank you all so much. All right. This is a time that we hope to spend on the internal work team planning for engagement with leadership. Okay, so Amy had some really great, this is primarily about how we use our voice and the observations held through all of these conversations and presentations and really the concerns that are being pinpointed in order to engage and make our voices heard as a prism of community to City Council. So we had initially forecast a potential working session toward the end of this month before budget season really hit. I think that's personally not feasible. It's just not just moving parts, but there are unknowns that we're receiving, and we don't necessarily have a cohesive, coordinated message to even approach. So we did, though. Brooke and myself met on the capital improvement plan and unified asset management. I believe Lorraine and Jenny might have met on the One Water and the public works and the natural service delivery. I was unfortunately not able to meet with Myra, but we have both report back from breakout teams. And then Amy has some great context in terms of other opportunities for timing on potential work sessions or engagement. So I think I'll throw to you first, Amy, if you want to speak on those opportunities, and then we can maybe report back from the breakout teams and then just pub-wide, just kind of talk through it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Kyle. So just echoing how you started with the initial goal of kind of targeting something with the committee late January, early February. There's some unknowns just about their meeting schedules even. I mentioned that council was working on those annual priorities. There has been the opportunity, depending on how much time they dedicate to that effort, to suspend some of the committee meetings, particularly during this month, so that council has the capacity to do that annual priority setting work. So I think we'll see I can already see just from what shows on the calendar. I think there's only one committee meeting that is currently scheduled in January, and I think more details will unfold as they figure out what their timeline is. But so what that tells us is that there's just some challenges at the even finding opportunities to engage with council because of this other area of focus and priority setting that's important to happen before they move forward into budget season. As I mentioned, there are other opportunities. So one that I had wanted to flag was that transportation and infrastructure hearing asset management update because Chair Clark on the T&I committee had flagged that as a potential natural place for PUB to engage directly with council in the coming month or two. Because there's important elements that relate to the utility bureaus. And so that's an important piece. There also are the other budget work, budget meetings that will be taking place that are also have been productive, and this year I think are important to take advantage of the opportunities, and that includes the work sessions when they happen with the transportation and infrastructure and or the finance committee. As the specifics of those roll out, we'll get a sense of when that will be, but I believe it will be late February, early March. As well as building towards the rate hearing ultimately in April, on April 15th. So, so those are important ones. I think this work that you've been doing as teams is what will feed into that. You're diving deeper just in the understanding and the language around some of these high priority areas for you. And so we can then take that information, identify what the needs or information gaps are so that we can further fine tune those and turn it into feedback that can be provided to council that will then connect naturally as you get budget information from the bureaus once they have those details available by basically in February. So I would anticipate your February and March meetings in particular to be pretty heavily focused on budget content and making sure that you have learned what you need to learn and fine tune what your message is, and that this team feedback can feed into that really productively. And then in the long term, looking towards later in the year, potentially having the work session as we know more about how the committees will work that into their schedule. So any questions? And otherwise, I'll just pass it back to you for some really quick updates from key groups before we wrap.
Thank you, Amy. Kyle Chipman, voting member. I'll give a brief update on Brooke and Maya's conversation or investigation, and then Brooke, I'll yield to you with any additional context. We met on deferred maintenance and unified asset management, and a big pull. Most of our investigation and my investigation, or the stuff that I saw and that we talked through, was pulling from the 2024 Citywide Assets Report, which actually Shannon was one of the folks that produced it, alongside 3 members from BES, 1 from Water Bureau, on a Citywide Asset Managers group. And the super cool thing was a lot of the questions that we were deriving were actually directly addressed through the presentation Shannon gave. So honestly, between that and today, there's not a whole lot more to echo. Anything you got, Brooke, that you jumped out to you, or is, I think it's pretty much all been covered through existing board meetings.
Hi, Brooke Burhanu, voting member. Yeah, no, I agree. I think really the biggest kind of questions were coming up around what this framework would look like and kind of how priorities are established across departments and then like even within departments. So I think the presentation in the last meeting really helped answer that pretty comprehensively.
Sweet, thank you. Jenny and Lorraine, I guess Jenny is out of pocket. Lorraine, were you able to meet with Jenny on One Water implementation and strategy, the natural resources service delivery area?
Yes, we did meet. Jenny and I met, and we came up with, I think we sent an Since last year. So we sent a note to what is wrong with my head today? I'm sorry.
No, you
We
good?
sent a note requesting with certain requests for some of the information we wanted from Ting and I think Quisha, but I suppose Ting is the point person now. So and that led us straight into the holiday season. So we didn't meet again because I was focusing on getting out of Dodge. And then all the holidays and all of that. Yes, Kyle. Kyle, I'll charge you for the comedy relief that I provide you. I'll start sending you a
I'm easy,
music.
my dad
Yeah.
says the same thing. I'm so easy to make.
Yeah, I'll send you my invoice all of last year and first thing this year. So Jenny and I we haven't reconvened to set up those meetings that we sent to Amy with the notes and stuff like that. And then, well, we in the throes of budget preparation. So I know that Ting and her team are extremely busy. So we'll see how we can work that into everyone's schedule to get some more information. Because the angle that we are approaching it with is directly tied to the mayor's guidance, which is guiding us on, hey, what does this mean? What is this going to look like? So that's the work that we have done.
Yeah, and just confirming that I received the requests for information, and is a very close connection in the questions and the budget process, and just kind of what's coming in these coming months. So I anticipate it will feed into some of the upcoming conversations in February and March, but we'll be coordinating with both Jenny and Lorraine this month to see if there's any gaps that we need to fill in the meantime.
I'll share an instinct, and I'd love to hear, or Kyle Chipman, voting member. I'll share an instinct, and I'd love to hear others' take. Pulling from all the responses today, it really sounds like if we can making our voices heard and engaging council will come through working through the three scenarios produced by the bureaus and really honing in on Farshad's point of it's not core services, which presumes that there is, or that core service, non-core service that can be cut. Every cut is a cost mixed with the nature of the accrual of cost across generations. So if we can, once we get the three scenarios presented by the bureaus, I mean, that's end of January timing. That's at January 23rd timing, Amy?
So that's when they submit their base information to the bureaus or to the budget office, but those aren't publicly available. So they're not published out as of that date. And now it's not until I believe it's February 9th that the reduction scenarios are due. So it pushes it a little bit past our first February meeting, unfortunately. So the timing, I'm not sure how much information. I don't know that the bureaus would even know how much information they will have available by the early February meeting. My guess is the bulk of it will be available by the second February meeting, but we'll want to dive into whatever is possible at that first February meeting if it's ready. The meeting this month is a little complicated because your meeting is next week. And so currently, I know we're not there yet, but before we wrap, we'll need to talk about priorities for that time and whether there are topics that need to be discussed or whether it might be an opportunity for some of the project teams or some of the behind the scenes work to continue offline. So I'd love to explore that a little bit when we get there.
I could plan to. Actually, I'll stop speaking. Did anyone have any strong responses or instincts coming up? Kyle Chipman, voting member. Any strong responses to Amy's summary? One pickup point I can take, and I'll be back in town on Saturday. I can aim to connect with Myra next week before Thursday to at least do a little bit of extra digging into the affordability and DEI piece, and the equitable affordability. That feels like it's if we can just get some of additional language, momentum, some focused points, building off of what was presented, and then from also all the points that were raised on this call as Myra watches back the recording, that's another critical one. The nature of rate increase and then how not tackling these problems now just gets worse and worse over time. Alexis, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. Alexis Rife, voting member. Thanks for the report outs and all of kind of the work that's happening behind the scenes to be moving these forward. I guess, and maybe I'm kind of jumping forward in the agenda a little bit, but I'm wondering like if things can be shared with us in writing from like those questions that were raised or kind of outputs of research to just keep those of us who are not in the lead on these groups informed about kind of what question, and then Amy and Jonna Lynn, I defer to you right on like what is and is not appropriate to do via email. But for example, like is it possible to get like some update on like what those questions are, what things are coming to mind, and then having people add additional questions that they would like, and can that happen via email or via like a form or something like that to streamline? And then I think in a future call, whether that's next week or in early February, I think it'd be really important and meaningful for us to kind of have a conversation on what are our main messages and priorities around each of these things so that we are ready as the opportunity arises. And I think that this is where folks are going, but so that then we are ready when things come up, because as we know, they come up quickly and without a whole lot of advance warning, that we can have our letters ready to go, or people have their talking points to be able to go to council. But I'm just trying to figure out like what can we advance offline and asynchronously over the next few weeks, just kind of given our meeting schedule here. So yeah, Amy and Jonathan, I'm curious like what is possible for us to do offline. And what might be able to be shared from what has been advanced thus far.
Yeah, I have pretty limited information in writing. I think it probably just the conversations happening directly between the leads has been the primary focus so far. But what we certainly can share whatever is available in writing as things are starting to be honed, at least so that you know what questions are being asked. You can certainly chime in and add any questions to the list, because any product that comes from that's going to loop back to the full board is just information sharing materials that could be made available as part of one of the public meetings, or a future conversation as you're fine-tuning what those talking points are. So I'm happy to figure out the best way. I'll work with Jonathan and we'll figure out the best way to just kind of maintain at least a running list of by the sections what questions are coming, and as we either provide information ourselves in response or get information from the bureaus, that we can make sure that all pub members have access to that information. And where it's been challenging for folks to find time to get together, we can also make use of next week's meeting if there aren't clear agenda topics, whether it's convening as a full group, convening as a group and having some of the teams kind of break off and do some work, or just that those are opportunities for if instead of, in lieu of holding the meeting, that the team folks are connecting directly with one another at that otherwise scheduled meeting time, so that it could continue to advance the drafting of some kind of priorities and talking points, then any of those that the board is open to or interested in, I'd be happy to figure out the logistics of how we could make that work for next week.
I would be down to work in a group setting if we don't have, we're all meeting anyways. And then we can actually like dial in to what we're just the point that Alexis raised and like get pretty locked into when and where. I have, I guess, one request. If we are to meet next week, Amy, could you also, or Amy and John Lynn in the read ahead, could you prepare the possible the timing of the events, like when these subcommittee meetings are occurring, when we think those scenarios might be released, and just like people can kind of get in their heads, what are our major like strike points or opportunities for engagement? And then we can treat the next meeting as a working session while everyone has a timeline in their head. How do other people feel about that approach?
Yeah, we can
Cool.
definitely provide a timeline with what we know of specific dates or at least a range of dates.
Sick. Cool. In the interest of time, then, I think I'd love to give a couple more minutes. We're 6 minutes past, but the ARC meeting is the big one. I think, do we still have no one committed yet, John Lynn or Amy?
That's correct. We do not have a voting member who has signed up for next week's ARC meeting.
Let me double check. I'll take like backup, but any new members, it really is a wonderful. I think everyone who's done it has said the same. I'll just say the same directly. You get it takes away some level of abstraction or height to what we do and takes you right at the ground level. And you're not actually, there is not a technical knowledge required. It's just read ahead and be present and be there in a human way for other humans and other Portlanders. So it's like a really revealing engagement that is not a huge lift, but humanizes the nature of the work. So,
Darryl Bob, voting member. I'm willing to volunteer if no one else is in, or probably interested but not available.
Thank you. I would be happy to give your name to the customer service folks. Thanks so much, Darryl. And please consider for February and each and every month, Lorraine.
Oh no, I'm not volunteering yet. I'm the last resort. That hands up wasn't for volunteering. I just want
Is a high five to Darryl?
I just want to acknowledge what is happening in this world, in my country of naturalization that I landed in on December 6, 2000. So and I landed right in Oregon. So I'm a naturalized Oregonian. And right now, as I told you all, I got out of Dodge. I am in my country of birth, which is Trinidad. And you all can go look on the map, or probably some of you may realize by now where Trinidad is located, in proximity to Venezuela. And I thought that I should raise this point at this time, that we recognize sometime as we show up as community advocates and whatever, what we are bringing with us and what we are carrying and what is overshadowing. So when I said that I got out of Dodge in December, I literally got out of Dodge for my sanity. And here I am in my country of birth, and the insanity is almost at my doorstep. So as we move forward in doing this work and advocating for equity and recognizing it, least we not forget what is happening, what is transpiring, and the real impact on individuals, communities, and countries. And I just wanted to share that so that we not forget what it is we're dealing with. So I am in my 80 degrees weather. I'm loving it. I'm sweating while you all are freezing. However, that is coming at a price where every helicopter I hear go over my house, I am wondering if it might be a misguided missile. So, as I said, Happy New Year. Let us continue doing the work that we're doing as we're advocating, and least not we forget the impacts on what is going on in the world today. So, have a good night, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thank you, Lorraine. I just wanted to say before you sign off, thank you for sharing and stay safe.
Thank you.
We move to adjourn. That's it, I believe. Thank you, Lorraine. Goodbye.